Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewNetworks.com to buy your DVD today.
Welcome to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. I'm your host, Editor-in-Chief for the RacingExperts.com, Dominic Ottagon.
And I'm David Swope, host of the New Mexico Motorsports Report on ESPN Radio, 1017 The Team.
And I'm Brooklyn, trackside reporter for the New Mexico Motorsports Report.
So it's October, it's playoff time, whether it's state football or soccer, but also on the national level too with NASCAR. Let's get started with your NASCAR highlights here. The Cup Series was in action at Martinsville Speedway Sunday. Kyle Busch will be racing for a championship at Homestead Miami Speedway. Busch punched his ticket to the championship four with his win in the first Data 500 at Martinsville Speedway on Sunday. Busch led the most laps and held off who else but Martin Truex Jr. for the win. Busch picked up his fifth win of 2017, and after the win, controversy between Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. A little bit more on that later, but for a third year in a row, Kyle Busch is going to be running for a championship.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, we all did have him in the Final Four. I think we all also had Kyle Larson, who was eliminated last week.
Yeah.
But we did have him there. I wasn't surprised that he won this race, but I really thought that we might see someone else. I was actually surprised to see Chase Elliott have such a good run. And I tell you, we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. But got to the end of the race, and here's Martin Truex again. I was surprised that Martin didn't move him, because I thought with all the action that we had at the end of the race, Martin Truex got there. I thought he was going to move Kyle Busch up the track, but he didn't. So you got to wonder if there was some Toyota team orders there.
Yeah, that's definitely something to speculate. He's got a 60-some point advantage over the cut line,
Right.
So he doesn't even have to start at Texas next week, and he would still be in the playoffs. That's how much of an advantage he has. But yeah, 7 guys now competing for 3 spots, and who would have thought Jimmy Johnson would have had a 12th place run? He got up to the front, he led some laps after starting in the back, but finished 12th. None of the Hendrick guys finished inside the top 10.
Yeah, when you have Dale Earnhardt Jr. at 11th being the highest Chevrolet running, is pretty significant there. Because that's a track where horsepower isn't as much of an issue. I mean, you can't hook it up. There on the paperclip, it's basically 2 straights and 2 turns. So it's a lot like a road course. So I thought we'd see a little bit more activity there. Brad Keselowski was super strong. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Chase Elliott running up front. One of the things I was most impressed with is when Chase had the lead and Brad passed him, that I really saw the new Chase Elliott come to the front, because then he drove back and basically walked him up the track and went around him, and that was pretty impressive to see that. And then of course, from there it's like, I've said many times, if you don't want to get spun, don't let them get to your rear quarter panel. But in this case, where was anybody else going to go? I mean, there was a lot of mess, and then of course right at the end of the race with that crash, where, crossing the line. I actually had to go in the other room and get my wife and have her come back and say, see this? I mean, they just scattered cars everywhere. I don't think there was a car other than maybe Kyle Busch and Truex that didn't have a mark on them at the end of the race. So it was definitely entertaining. NASCAR got what they needed, with having some controversy, but we got 2 more races before the cutoff. It's going to be exciting. I don't think we're going to necessarily see any payback at Texas. It's too high of speeds, to go up there and spin somebody. But
I saw the funniest tweet. I don't know who tweeted. I can't remember. I think it was NASCAR, but it was like Martinsville has a new addition, the parking lot, and it was like It was all the cars on the track at the end of the race. I thought it was hilarious.
Absolutely. But what do you guys think of? Ryan Blaney. Had a really good run, and of course, before we get to talk about the big moment, what about the moment with Harvick and Blaney? I mean, did you guys see that when there was a confrontation about them, and basically Harvick punched him kind of in the stomach, and then Blaney punched him in the ribs as he walked away. You guys haven't seen that?
No.
See that?
That went over our head.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at, what are some of the best fights in NASCAR, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of take a look back, and there was one name that kept coming up over and over again. And of course, I know you're going to know some of the historic ones, But Martinsville, of course, you had the Harvick and Blaney this time. 2017, we were there in Vegas with Busch, Logano. 2014, Gordon and Keselowski. And at Charlotte, you had Kenseth and Keselowski. But remember, the whole Gordon and Keselowski thing, 2014 in Texas, Harvick pushed him, right? Yeah. Harvick pushed him in on that fight. And then in 2010 in Texas, of course, you have, Biffle and Gordon. But then I started looking, it's like, well, how many fights has Harvick been in? And so 2011, of course, he had the fight with Biffle. 2007, he got in the fight with Juan Pablo Montoya. And I'm thinking the only person that's like taking more shots than Kevin Harvick is Delaney Harvick. I mean, she's on with Twitter and getting into it. But it really all started like 1979, the first Daytona 500, the first air, and you have basically Cale Yarborough taking on all the Allisons, and that's where this whole thing got started. So that's where NASCAR really kind of needs to push and the shoving, and and I think it delivered on that. But I got to ask you, what's maybe like one of your favorite fights, the NASCAR fights?
Well, it'd be that 2010 thing, and actually I think Biffle might have tapped Gordon or something going into turn 2. Jeff Burton's involved with that as well. There's a scuffle. Jeff Gordon's walking down the backstretch. He's going to go talk to Jeff Burton.
Right.
No, he doesn't go talk to Jeff Burton. He starts throwing blows at Jeff Burton. And Jeff's just kind of sitting there like, crap, what do I do? And then they have to ride in the ambulance together.
Right.
So,
oh my
yeah, and then being there for Vegas, like the Kyle Busch and Joey Logano thing on the last lap, and going back and looking at that video and seeing your head in a lot of the JeffGluck.com video that's out there surfacing, and seeing you out there. That was cool to see your.
Yeah, I was on my way. Of course, we were working on a story. I needed a quote from Eric Jones, and all of a sudden, Kyle Busch walks right past me, goes over there, and just basically tries to take a swing at Logano, and that's when I turned back and saw. I mean, the crew had him on the ground. So it was a pretty fast little deal.
See what was going on in that one.
Oh yeah, I mean it was the best part, of course, is the blood. I mean with Kyle Busch with blood running down his face. But it was one of those things where that was, it's hard to believe that was earlier this season.
Yes.
And to see what they've been through, but. Let's talk a little bit about the Hamlin and Elliott incident. So
Chase versus Denny versus the fan.
Oh yes. Gosh, yes.
So yeah, we actually have video of the fight. There was a fan, and this is courtesy Matt Weaver of Auto Week.
Yep.
Fan trying to pick a fight with Denny Hamlin. I don't know if they've identified the guy or not, but you can see there the sheriffs have to hold him back there, and I don't know, like. It's getting that bad that fans want to pick fights for the driver on their behalf. And Chase Elliott said this isn't worth his time.
Right. Well, and actually, if you go and you see where, of course, Chase slams him up into the wall, and you let him know that he wasn't going to have anything to do with it. I don't know if you saw that part where this other fan's like, I don't care what that guy says. Yeah, you're my favorite driver. So anyway, but it was really neat. I mean, because they pull over, Denny Hamlin gets out and goes up to him, and you can read his mouth. I mean, he's saying, "You wrecked me,"
like 4 times.
You wrecked me, And so I think that we are seeing the reason why Chase Elliott is going to be the most popular driver next season. He's going to take over for Dale Jr. I think things are going just fine. I think that as they continue to push him, that somewhere along the way he's going to get that win. And he's got a good chance of winning a championship this year. But that was good to see, and there really was nothing there to it.
Yeah.
Other than Denny Hamlin did come out on Twitter and basically apologize, and it was on him. I mean, have you ever been involved? Has anybody ever spun you in the quarter midgets?
Oh yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. Of course, we don't really know what we're doing out there. We're little kids. But I was honestly super surprised that Chase confronted him like that. Like, being at Charlotte and, like, seeing Chase, how calm he is, I wasn't expecting anything. Like, I was watching the race with my family. I was like, oh, he won't do anything. And then I was like, go, Chase. Like, come on, stick up for yourself,
Right.
He actually reminded me a lot of Jeff Gordon, like, sticking up for himself in that sense. But, yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he did it, and I think that, I don't know.
but if you look at the video, I mean, he drove. I mean, he picked his tires up off the pavement. I mean, I did that before with a VW. Drove right up. When you're between two cars and you can't go anywhere, and the person in front of you needs to go. I mean, I've driven up there and picked their wheels up off the ground, but that was deliberate.
Yeah.
The silly thing, in my opinion, is why he didn't save that for the last lap. Because if he would have spun him on the last lap with the white flag out, the race would have been over. He would have got the win.
Yeah.
So I mean, why do it with 7 laps left where somebody can retaliate on you, which is exactly what happened. So I mean, you've got to pick your time. Chase, your time's coming. I wouldn't worry about it. But Denny Hamlin getting booed by Virginia fans when he's from Virginia,
just down the road in Chesterfield.
Oh my gosh, that was probably the most amazing thing, was the level of boos. I mean, it was loud.
It was loud,
and they were throwing bottles. I guess they were throwing water bottles and stuff.
Kyle Petty said they were on the backstretch, and it sounded after the race. He was like, it sounded like they were right in front of us. Like that's how loud it was.
Yeah.
So if that's what it's going to take for, the most popular driver to get those fans back up there, go for it, Chase.
It was interesting to see him show that backbone for once, because we all know Chase Elliott's too corporate, too button up. He doesn't like to really say anything in his interviews. Doesn't like to stir the pot. We saw a different Chase Elliott out there on Sunday.
But I definitely think he handled it with such professionalism.
He did.
Yeah. I definitely
could have gone over there and clocked him. He chose not to. But speaking of Martinsville clocks, another Martinsville clock was awarded this weekend. So set racing Saturday at Martinsville.
Yeah, a rookie showed a veteran how it's done at the paperclip. Matt Crafton led the most laps in the Texas Roadhouse 200 at Martinsville on Saturday, but rookie Noah Gragson made the pass from the high side on a restart with about 10 laps to go. Gragson is not part of the playoffs, so no driver clinched a spot to the championship 4.
That move on the outside just impressed me. Watching that race, I thought Crafton had this in the bag. They have the late restart, and Gragson goes around the outside. I thought Kyle Busch was driving that truck.
Yeah, I thought that was an excellent move. I mean, he was dealing. Johnny Sauter was right there. I mean, Johnny Sauter would take you out for $1. So having Matt Crafton there as well, but a pretty strong run, other than John Hunter Nemechek.
In trouble again.
Yeah, going out, and so I don't see him advancing, but solidly, Christopher Bell, Ben Rhodes, Matt Crafton, and Johnny Sauter. I think that's going to be your final 4. Austin Cindric did a good job and finished in 10th there, but really going to have to get it done. And once again, you've got not a regular winning the race.
Exactly.
So it's been quite interesting.
Sure, and John Hunter Nemechek, he did win at Texas in June, so I think this is his last-ditch effort. He's got to pull something out of the hat like he did a couple weeks ago at Talladega. But Welcome back to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. I'm your host, Editor-in-Chief for the Racing Experts, Dominic Aragon.
And I'm David Swope, and we're joined by Mike Travers. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring you down and talk a little bit about Spec Miata racing, but I thought we'd start with a little bit of background. How'd you get started in road racing?
Started doing some racing probably 7 or 8 years ago with my Camaro that I built, doing some autocross with it. And as the years have gone, I spent most of my time with coaching my kids, and my kids were getting older. But started doing a little bit of autocross, and I went up to Arizona with the Camaro Fest, and I ended up placing third in my first autocross event out of 50 cars. And then with the top 5, you got to go join a bunch of other guys on a different track to ride as a passenger in a race car.
Cool.
So I got to do that, had a ball. I came back and I was like, I got to do this. So started asking around in town of like, how do you do this? Because I didn't even know something like this existed, for someone like me to do it. And, got in touch with some of the right people. And I've been hooked ever since. I've built 3 Spec Miatas now. I've got my daughter running a Spec Miata, and I just finished a Porsche Boxster now.
Awesome.
So,
well, for the viewers that don't know what a Spec Miata is, how would you describe that?
So basically it's a Mazda Miata. Most of them that we run are from a 1990 to a 2002 is what our Spec Miata group is based out of. You strip a street car and you build it into a full race car, a full roll cage. You have to meet all the specs, which are all of the legalities of that group. We can't do turbos or supercharged motors. We all run same suspensions. We all run pretty much a basic stock motor to a point. We all basically run same tires, and we also have a weight class. So if you have like a 1990 to a 98, it's like 2,300. If you run a 99 2002, we're at 2,415. And so everything is basically all about the driver. So what we do is everybody calls them momentum cars. Very little horsepower. So this is where everyone says that this is where you get taught how to drive, because you have to hit your corners properly to entrance and exit out to keep that momentum speed.
Well, Miata, I guess they're at the 4th evolution now of the body type, starting in 1990. Was there a lot of changes in the different types? Is that where the weight comes? Is there's certain advantages, maybe like better brakes, better suspension parts in the newer models?
So I think the biggest difference is motor. The earlier years are 1.6, and the newer, so 90 to 98 is a 1.6. For the most part, there's a couple 1.8s in the 97 to 98, but then the 99 to 2002 are the 1.8. And so the motor difference in the horsepower is where that weight difference is. So horsepower to weight ratio. Also, the earlier years had a smaller base. Our shorter base, wider and longer, are shorter on both all the way around, and so they were a little bit more nimble, I guess you could say. You can seem to throw them around a lot more than you can like a 99. So
yeah, and I would concur with that. As a matter of fact, they're extremely responsive. Probably the only street car that I've ever driven that was more responsive is a Mini Cooper. But they are very, very nimble. So locally out at San Diego Speedway, there's different run groups that you can run the Miatas with. What are some of the clubs or organizations that you could run a Miata with?
Here locally, we run obviously over at Sandia, and we have the Swims group that we run with, and usually with as big as we are here, we'll usually run with everybody that's got a race car. So we'll be out there with Spec Miatas. You'll have some Porsche 944s. You'll have some of the vintage cars, some of the Mini Coopers, but all race, type style cars with full roll cages and all that. And so there are also, the other group is Sarah, that is now kind of a new group that Charlie out there at the track has developed. And so like right now we're going into our winter series. And it's a little Sunday series that we do, one Sunday a month. Then we start about 9 a.m. and run till about 2 in the afternoon. And we just invite anybody that's got a legal race car that's up to tech inspection. So those are the 2 different local groups that we have here.
So what kind of training is there? I mean, is there a school, or is there an opportunity that somebody that could come out and just kind of see what's going on? Maybe like you, get a ride in a car, get addicted, and then decide to maybe build a car. Is there any licensing you got to go through in order to do that?
So Charlie at the track out there, the track manager, there runs an HPDE class. So you can sign up for his class and go out there, and he does some training. I've done some instruction out there with him for that. And so that's really a good place to start to get kind of acclimated to it. But we always are inviting people to come out, especially the young guys that are out there driving the streets a little faster than they should. It's like, come on out and join us out there on the racetrack. But they can come out on a Sunday. We always have, passenger seats for somebody to come out, give them a ride, and we're always putting smiles on their faces, and so absolutely, it's very easy out here to get licenses here. We make it very simple. We just want people out there to race and have a good time. We're really family orientated. I couldn't do this without my wife. I mean, she's been super supportive. Right. She goes with me on everywhere I travel with racing. I fully jumped in with race cars and race trailers and everything else. But I've got a daughter that's into it, and so yeah, it's really family oriented. We make things really easy for people to get into it.
And for yourself with family racing, do you get to have like your wife being the spotter, your daughter be the crew chief, or anything like that?
My wife does. She'll actually put on a race suit, and she'll be out there with gloves, and she'll rotate tires, and she'll check the oil. Nice. So it is cool to see her do that. So yeah, and so we also have radios in the car. So sometimes she'll be in the stands, and she'll get on the radio and will tell me, "Don't let him pass you. Don't let him pass you." So. But no, it's a lot of fun. It's us amateurs just going out there. My wife calls it my midlife crisis, but it's just having a ball with it. I absolutely love doing it. If I had my choice, I'd be in my race car every weekend.
So if we could run some of the photos, if we haven't already, let's take a look, because we've got here. You've got all of the fire equipment. So what are the things that are mainly required? A fire suit, helmet?
Single layer.
They're triple layer.
Triple layer, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we have to have our helmets. You have to have a Hans. You have to have the proper shoes. You have to have the proper socks. We also will run what we call a cool suit. It gets extremely hot out there, so we run a shirt that has tubes in it, and you have a bucket in the back of the car or wherever with ice in it, and so it'll it has a pump and it pushes that cold water through your shirt. So. But
so here you've got you got two cars. So did you have them set up like identically? Is it in case one was not running and you always got one, and then the daughter gets it if everything's going good?
Kinda. One car, one of them I bought already built, and then I ended up getting my hands on another car that was completely stripped, and I wanted to build one myself. And so I built one car completely from start to finish. And so what I did is I painted them identically. I pretty much built the one to where it matched the other. And so yeah, a lot of times if I'm traveling up to Colorado or California, I'll take both cars, just so that you're going that far away to race. If something happens, I have another car. So I'm a little. Not many people do that. I was just fortunate that I wanted to build a car.
So here's a little video of you, or a couple of your cars. Well, that's your daughter's car because it's pink.
Yeah, that's my daughter Trinity. Is driving with Leo, I believe. Them two were out there. Yep. Playing around a little bit together. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Boxster a little bit more a little later. But what's kind of the investment level? I mean, to get into a race prepared Spec Miata?
You can get into from like a 90 to a 98. Average is about $7,500 car built and ready to race. The 99s is usually the car of choice because of the horsepower advantage, especially on the longer straights on some of the tracks up in Colorado or California, and somewhere 15 plus. I mean, I've seen some Spec Miatas get up to about 25. Wow. So yeah, it just depends on how much gadgets you have in it, how many switches, if you want like a data system and stuff like that. But so I mean, you can get into a decent starting car for less than 10. Wow,
so, that's really good.
Very reasonable.
Especially with a good car count. And how much traveling do you do now with the Miata?
Probably more than I should, but
well, if the wife's going with you, you're just fine.
I'm just fine.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give me a hard time about it. But right now, I also belong to with NASA and SCCA and PCA. And so with NASA, I'm running probably 6 events or so up in Colorado, 2 or 3 in California. We just found out that next year's championships are at COTA in September, so I'm really excited about that because I got to race at COTA at Memorial Day weekend this year.
Wow.
Amazing facility and great track. We're seeing right now, we're running about 25 cars on average up in Colorado. We ran over 30 at the championships at Thunder Hill this year.
Wow.
And next year at COTA, we're expecting over 60 cars from around the country. Wow. Just in our run group.
Wow, and so, I mean that's all different from the 90s through the more modern body styles.
Yep, it'll be from a 90 to a 2002.
Wow.
So there's going to be some knockout rounds. People who are going home because the field's going to be too big.
Yes. Yeah, if we have that many, there'll probably be a couple qualifying
heat races.
Well, because you use the word knockout, and being from the vintage side, a lot of times with the Spec Miatas, they get concerned because their cars are show cars as much as race cars on the vintage side. And the Miatas, you guys do a little bit of rubbing. Talk about that.
We do. It's really definitely not for a lot of people. I've always been pretty aggressive, I guess, and so I enjoy it. But yeah, we will go 2 and 3 wide into corners. I've been thrown off the track at 100 miles an hour a couple different places. I've been turned sideways. I've definitely spun the car multiple times. I've seen people on their lids. Luckily, I have never been on my lid. But yeah, have you seen some of the pictures that they just showed? My cars, there's a lot of tire rubbing on them. I mean, we'll be sliding around corners 2 and 3 wide at over 80 miles an hour. Wow. And so if the cars are holding, sometimes they hold, sometimes they don't. We get pushed over. This year at the championships at Thunder Hill in the championship race, we went 3 wide into turn 1, and I got the bad end of it, and I got hit off track and off into the dirt. And jumped back on, and had to fight my way back. So there's definitely a lot of rubbing in Spec Miata, and a lot of people around the country call Spec Miata, our racing group, pinballers.
Okay, pinballers.
So yeah, a lot of people don't like to be on the track with us. I'll tell you that.
Do you guys get a lot of feuds going week to week, carrying over, even some fights?
Sometimes. They're not here locally. Most of all of our guys here, everybody just has a good time, and it's all pretty laid back. When we're racing up in Colorado or California, around the guys that you're normally racing with, everybody's kind of really cool with each other. But you start racing with guys out of region, you don't know what their abilities are, and you don't know what their temperament is. And so I've definitely been involved in some of it. You go 2 or 3 wide. Sometimes some of these guys think that you should have been the one to back out. I'm not the one that's going to back out, and so you start getting people upset. So it happens.
Well, I can testify being in 2 races with you. You've passed me before turn 1 in both of them, including the last one that I come down through the middle. I have yet to figure out, and maybe you can come out and coach me. I seem to be starting in the wrong gear. Because the first one I got suckered because I think I was in second or whatever, and they slowed way down. Should have stayed in first, but in the last one there was a little bit more roll going, and I was in first, and so I immediately had to go to second gear. And I didn't even make it to the flag stand, So, is that just kind of getting to know who's on the pole and their style? Is that really what you're looking at?
Absolutely. I was going to say that first thing I was going to say is who's on the pole.
Right.
When we were running out there at Sandia, that one race you were talking about, we had somebody on pole that had never been on pole before.
Oh.
So wow. Yeah, you're supposed to be doing 10, 15 miles an hour. But yeah, everybody was kind of chasing them down to get off the start.
Right.
So yeah, the first thing is figuring out who's on the pole. Out at most tracks, you're going to start off at second gear.
Okay.
And so a lot of people want to bunch up right on top of each other, and you really want to give yourself about a half a car length, so that when you see that green flag, if you beat the person in front of you to the pedal, that you can jump out around them. But if you're right on their bumper, 1, you can't really see the flag, and 2, you have no run. And so you want to try to give, that's Milo, you want to give yourself a little bit of cushion there to try to jump out.
Well, now I got a little book on you. So, you know, I mean, and a lot of the other racing I've done, the circle track racing, it's what I'll do is I'll go up and be able to watch like a second practice session or something, just see, you know, stylistically how people are. But yeah, the first race we were in, I know that there was a little conversation afterwards with Leo and Larry, and I don't even know what happened. I just saw Larry go off the track, and we kept running. But I thought to myself that still at this level, I mean, Larry's in his 60s, and he still was, you know, kind of charged up and wanted to go over and talk to the young man. And I told him later, I said, you know, you should have done the 5-minute rule. I mean, you know. You gotta sit. You gotta wait 5 minutes. You know, I mean, because otherwise you'll say something silly. But is Soren still involved? Is Soren still running up in Colorado?
He's up in Colorado. He is very well involved in NASA up there in the Rocky Mountain region. His son Ethan is at the top. You know, he's top 3 pretty much every weekend. Right. Incredible driver. But Soren is definitely the guy that helped me get very much involved with this. He's the one that helped me. You know, he built my first car, and Ethan helped me out a lot. I basically followed Ethan around the track here. I learned a lot from him, and I mean, he at the time he was like 15, 16.
I was going to say, what is he? Maybe 20 now?
Yeah, he's 19, 20 now. And
yeah,
good kid. I mean, he drives so well. He's just so smooth. But yeah, so they're up there in Colorado, you know, and since he's left Albuquerque and doing his thing up there, you know, Keith with Keith's alignment here now is kind of our go-to for the Miata guys, and also for all different racers. Everybody that races here locally goes to see Keith for different mechanical or you know, setting up the car and stuff like that.
Sure. So, well, Mike, stay with us. We got to take a quick commercial break here, but we'll be having more here on the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on Proview Networks.
When I train for American Ninja Warrior, I schedule regular workouts to stay in shape. To keep my car in Ninja Tough shape, I head to a Napa Auto Care Center for regular maintenance and genuine Napa Auto parts, like brakes and batteries. I trust my Napa Auto Care Center for quality parts and quality service. And with the 24-month, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty, I drive away with peace of mind every time. Visit AutoCareNM.com to find a location near you.
Garden Sorts Team Sales is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game. Garden Schwartz Team Sales features fine products and apparel from Wilson, Schutt Sports, Speedline, and Russell Athletics. We offer custom embroidery and screen printing services for all of your school or club needs, from team uniforms to school letter jackets. Specializing in all sports and serving all communities, from big schools to small schools, from up north to down south, or all points in between. Garden Schwartz Team Sales. For great prices, friendly staff, and quality products, call Garden Schwartz Team Sales today at 1-800-880-7767. That's 1-800-880-7767. Since 1939, Garden Schwartz Team Sales is a proud supporter of New Mexico youth athletics.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Welcome back to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. Dominic Aragona.
David Swope with the New Mexico Motorsports Report on ESPN Radio 117, The Team. And joining us, Mike Travers. Thank you for staying over. Wanted to run some in-car video and have you kind of tell us where this was at and what all was going on.
So this was at Buttonwillow for last year's championships, I believe September, October. And so we're going off to the start, and you'll see we're bunched up pretty good, and you'll see where I jump out there, and that's kind of what I was talking about, just seeing that green flag. We had a little bit of an issue here going into turn 1. We're basically going 4 wide. You'll notice I'll get tapped from the back rear, which put me into another car in front of me, which takes him a little bit off into the dirt, but he comes back on. And so that's kind of really the green flag. Turn 1 is the most exciting part of the race, and then from there you're trying to pick up some spots. If you're coming from the back, if you're starting from the front, you're trying to keep everybody behind you, and then from there on out it's just, you know, do everything you can and catch and pass whoever you can and try to keep the people behind you.
And it's not, you have to be very meticulous correctly with your passing, because it's not like an oval where you just have all these passing zones. You have to pick and choose where you're going to pick off people.
Absolutely, especially at that trick Buttonwillow. If you've seen us after we came through turn 1, everybody almost starts to line up going through the S's. There really is no room to go too wide in through there. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of places where you have to pick and choose where is going to be a good passing zone, you know, where you want to break in later than somebody else. So yeah, you don't want to dive in on somebody if they can't see you. So yeah, absolutely.
So because it's a momentum type of racing, as you were describing, the start is super important.
Very, very important, yes.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I did the championships this year and I got hit off track, there was 29 cars, and by the time I came through turn 1 and I got off and got back on, I was dead last at that, me and one other car. And so from 29th, I worked my way up to finish 17th. So I had a battle, you know, for a 45-minute race to pick up those many spots. But, you know, that put me to where I couldn't even had a chance at the top 10, you know.
Wow, 45 minutes. Buttonwillow, where is that?
Buttonwillow is up in Bakersfield, California, just outside of Bakersfield.
That's what I thought. Is that the furthest that you've traveled?
No. Thunder Hill, where we just were at the championships, was about a 27-hour tow for me.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it was a very long haul. I have a dually with a 53-foot race trailer that'll carry 2 race cars.
Wow! And
I'm the same length as a semi, so it's a chore. But yeah, it took us 27 hours to get to Thunder Hill.
Well, and you mentioned that you have an SCCA license. I was reading an article that talked about basically that SCCA had gone through a lot of problems, and that Spec Miata group had actually saved the racing organization. Do you have any thoughts on that, or were you aware of that, or just kind of came in and you love racing and glad it was there?
No, I just absolutely just glad it was there. But the SCCA is not real big in our region. Yeah. NASA is really bigger in our region. SCCA is really big up, you know, in California or back east. But the Spec Miata group has really helped SCCA around the country. Spec Miata is probably the biggest amateur racing group in the country. They always bring the biggest field. The audience or anybody that's out there, they always stay for the Spec Miata race. Last year at Indianapolis, they did the SCCA runoffs under the lights for the first time in the rain, and they had 64 cars, and they did it under the lights just because, I mean, everybody that's out there watching just loves watching the Spec Miata racers because everybody's so aggressive, you know, and you know, it's like watching NASCAR. I mean, you like what happened this weekend is all the bumping and hitting. I mean, that's what we're Spec Miata. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in the front of the group, you're in the back of the pack, you're racing somebody, usually 3-4 guys going 2 and 3 wide into corners.
Wow. And so we have some photos on the Spec Boxster. Talk a little bit about what that is. Is that a PCA or is it an SCCA run group, or?
It's a little bit of all of them. You can run the Spec Boxster and SCCA, NASA, or PCA. I just finished this car. I've done 2 races with it. I'm actually going back to Buttonwillow next weekend to run the last PCA event with that car. When we left Thunderhill, I took the truck and trailer and dropped it off there in Bakersfield. So I left the truck and trailer there for me to fly back to run that last event. But I've been a Porsche fan for a long time, and when I first got into this, that was my overall goal, was to race into a Porsche. And so I built that car this year with the help of Keith from Keith's Alignment. Helped me out a lot on that car. So him and I and my dad built that car with some of the guys from within my company did. But it's a fun car to run. It is very different than the Spec Miata because it's a mid-engine car. It's very rear-end happy. It likes to snap in the rear end a lot more than Spec Miata.
Yeah.
And the other biggest difference is they don't like to rub.
Okay, yeah.
So it's with the guys who run in the PCA and the Porsche group, they do not like to rub at all. So it's totally, when I go from a Miata to the Boxster, I really have to kind of have my mindset of what car I'm in.
Yeah. How long does that take to kind of retrain from going to bumping and running and banging fenders to, whoa, you can't really touch?
When I'm out there running just the Spec Boxster,
yeah,
it's fairly easy because I know I'm in that car. But I have gone to events with NASA where I've run both in the same weekend, which is a lot. But when doing that, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because the run groups can be about similar size, and once you're getting that car, I mean, the size of the cars are very similar.
Yeah.
So you get off that start, it is tough to differentiate between the cars.
Sure.
But,
well, in the front end shot on the photo, it does look a lot like a 911 in the front end. And I'm assuming it handles much more like a 914 when you drive it. It looks a lot like a Miata, but it's got all that German tailoring and everything. My first road racing car was a 911S, and I really felt like when I learned to drive that car, I really learned to drive because you had to steer with the back, and we would run down. 350 GTs and different run groups, but still there was always the Mini Cooper that would run away from us. So just the speed to weight ratio on that. If somebody was watching and they wanted to reach out to you and get some more information, how would you recommend they do that?
They can email me at Michael Travers, the number 2 at msn.com. So MichaelTravers, the number 2 at msn.com. Happy to help. Just send me an email asking any questions you have for racing, and happy to help anybody. We want people to come out and enjoy the racing, come out and watch, come out and get in a car, have some ideas of what they need to do if they want to build a car. We're building another Spec Miata right now for a family friend who's into it. He used to race motocross and has decided I want to have a roll cage around me. So I'm actually excited. I love building cars, so we're in the middle of building another car right now.
Great. Do you know if Sandy is going to have the Winter Series on the website? Have you heard that yet, or?
It should be, Winter Series should be posted on the website within the next 2 weeks. Our first event right now is scheduled for November 26th. We're one Sunday a month. That'll be in the first one. And then, we'll have December and January, February, and March. If you would like to go out and look at that, and it's not on the website, feel free to email me. But yeah, Charlie, I would imagine, should have that schedule on the website here within the next couple weeks.
Mike, thank you so much for dropping by the show today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Had a ball.
Good.
On the other side of the break, we're going to take a look at what's going on locally. You're watching the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewNetworks.com to buy your DVD today. Hoops NM Basketball Center is coming soon. 10 full courts broken into 2 wings for ultimate basketball and volleyball play. Locker rooms, a lounge area, a pro shop, and a full snack bar will all be a part of a great experience. Convenient parking and access will make the Hoops NM Basketball Center a premier facility for league play and competitive regional tournaments. With over 9,000 square feet, Hoops NM Basketball Center will take court sports play to another level in our community. Courts are regulation high school size with wood floors and seating for approximately 350 per court. Major sponsors and supporters are being assembled now. If you're interested, contact Dan Serrano at 505-249-7994. Send him an email, hoopsnm@aol.com. That's hoopsnm@aol.com. Hoops NM Basketball Center, a premier sports facility serving our community.
Welcome back to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. It's time to take a check of what's going on locally this weekend. Here's Brooklyn Green.
Yeah, for the event calendar this week, we've got a couple things going on this Saturday. At ABQ Dragway, November 4th, the Street to Strip, Street Legal Drags, Test and Tunes, and Time Trials, and that'll be happening 11 to 4. And then at Sandia Motor Speedway, we've got drifting. It's called Drift Christmas, and that's also on November 4th.
You guys ever gone drifting?
Yes, I have. One thing I'm happy to say is I have not drifted with Jim Guthrie. That's the one that scares me. But no, I've been out there. Great group. They always have a lot of fun. And really, I mean, drifting. The cool thing about drifting is it's kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
It's kind of hanging out with car people. You can walk around. I love to see some of the things they're doing with their cars and the turbocharging and stuff. It's very creative. They don't get caught up in paint or anything like that. They zip tie their bumpers back on. It's quite a group. You should definitely go check that out. But I wonder if like Santa's going to be involved. I mean, Drift Christmas.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Dan Brockett. I'll have to give him a call and find out what's up with that.
Have you ever gone drifting before?
I haven't. I mean, not at Sandia. I mean, in the rain, maybe.
Oh,
yeah. Does it count in the snow?
Hydroplaning?
Yeah, exactly. Does it count if it's accidental and around Christmas time in the snow in Grants? Does that count, guys?
Yeah, that counts. that counts. If you chose to pitch the car sideways, then you're drifting.
Yeah, I don't recommend it at home. So.
Right. Yeah,
That's why we have that Sandia Speedway.
Exactly.
So
right.
Don't do it on the
We can do it safely and legally at the racetrack.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at your Truck Series points for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. 3 races to go. They're in action the next 3 consecutive weeks. Christopher Bell, your point leader. No one won at Martinsville that was in the playoffs, so nobody is safe heading into Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I think your veterans are pretty solid because they've been here before. Christopher Bell, that's a pretty slim lead over Johnny Sauter, but I think he's pretty solid making it in the final round. And then you just got to finish in front of 3 other trucks. What's really interesting is Sauter did some testing at Talladega, as well as he's got another test coming up for this crate motor on November 6th. And I think that is going to really kind of change some things out. Also, Crafton, it looks like he's staying on with Thorsports. He's got 2 championships, 14 wins, 13 poles, 96 top 5s, 23 top 10s, 39 years old. It looks like he's staying put with Thorsports. What's your thoughts on maybe the crate motor next year? Have you thought anything about that?
Well, I have. So it's more like a spec motor, correct?
Right.
Like they're doing the Xfinity Series. It's an opportunity, I think, for the smaller teams to kind of close the gap with the bigger teams. I know a lot of the drivers and the team owners really talk about how budgets really go through the roof, and NASCAR, they want NASCAR to really try to curb that. And I think this is an opportunity to try and reduce some of those costs, especially for the smaller teams.
I'm surprised. When we talked about spec motors, running Spec Motors had at Sandia Speedway back in 2010. They pitched a fit, you know, and nobody wanted to do that. We could even like spec a manifold or head sizes or anything like that, you know. I mean, everybody, and I don't know, you know, they always talked about it was actually more expensive. What blew my mind was in the testing at Talladega, Sauter was already turning laps that were faster than pole qualifying. So clearly it's not an inferior motor, but it is an opportunity to contain costs.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at your NASCAR Xfinity Series points. Speaking of crate motors for next year. Yeah, 3 races remain in the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoffs, including 2 more in the round of 8. Justin Allgaier and William Byron, along with Elliott Sadler, a commanding lead with the JR Motorsports. Only 4 are advancing, so it's more of an essence of who's going to be racing JR Motorsports for this championship.
Yeah, exactly. It's the top 3 are JR Motorsports. You know, Justin Allgaier and William Byron actually, you know, swapped positions after the last race, with Justin getting a little bit of lead there.
And I have to tell you, Justin was very, very, he made sure that we knew that, because we were talking to him on pit road, and Justin Below was talking with him and saying, well, looks like you guys are really close for the point leaders. We are the point leaders heading into the off week. So, oh, absolutely. He made sure to let us know that he was the point leader. But when you look at that list, who do you think beyond 5th place could try to make their way to Homestead, or who has the chance to maybe point their way in or win at Texas or Phoenix?
Well, basically, you've got it's pretty tight from 5th back to 8th. A win, of course, and you're in. One of those guys jumps up and takes a win. I mean, you know, looking at that, of course, Matt Tiff's got incredible equipment. I mean, JGR equipment. Is that the other, you know, person that can contend? Brendan Poole, I'm still on the fence about him. You know, I mean, you know, I'm not sure that he's there yet. But you know, I mean, driving a Chevrolet, so it'd be, you know, I mean, he could. I think it'd be neat to not have them all drive Chevrolets, though. Yeah. You know, and so I mean, you know, I'm a fan of Cole Custer. Yeah, when we interviewed him in Vegas, you know, and he didn't even know what Albuquerque was, so that's special to me. You know, it's like I want to see him, and I want him to, and you know, because we had to coach him how to say Albuquerque, but I think he can do it. So I think that would be neat. But I'm going to say on the outside, if I had to pick somebody, I'd say probably Matt Tiff. Matt
Tiff looks really strong. Last year when he ran the part-time schedule, had all those top 10 finishes. He's matched just that amount running the full schedule. So I think if he can get a great run at Texas, knock off some stage points, because that's going to be the point for any of these playoffs, for any of the 3 series, is the stage points. Well, and let's take a look at your Cup Series points heading into Texas Motor Speedway. Only guy guaranteed now, Kyle Busch. That graphic should say Kyle Busch, so that's an error on our end. But virtually Martin Truex Jr. is good to go based on the points. He doesn't even have to start at Texas, and he would still be in playoff contention. Right. But Ryan Blaney, if you guys recall, he won stages 1 and 2 at the April Texas race. Johnson ended up winning the race, but any of these 8 drivers can go out and lead a bunch of laps and win Sunday.
Well, and you do got Jimmy Johnson sitting there in 5th, which, you know, it's one of those things you just can't write that guy off. Kevin Harvick, of course, if he goes and wins the Invitational, he's in. So basically, Truex, of course, that's a 1.5-mile track at Texas. So that could definitely happen. So the battle, you know, could really come down to, you know, is Jimmy Johnson or Brad Keselowski the one that makes it in? I think I think Ryan Blaney, that's a good shot. Chase Elliott, I really wouldn't want to be against him right now with what happened at Martinsville. But I don't know if this is going to get in Denny Hamlin's head now. You know, it's going to be, you know, thinking about whether somebody's coming from him, and it might be everybody. It may not just be Chase Elliott.
Even the crowd.
Yeah, even the crowd, exactly.
Fans, you got to be watching your back. He's going to have extra security, I would imagine, the next few weeks.
It's sad to see Chase Elliott down there.
Yeah, 90 points back of the lead, but sitting over 30 back from the transfer spot. He's going to have to win a race or just score a bunch of stage points the next few weeks and knock off solid top 5 runs like he has this whole playoffs. But I think in order to get to that final round, unless you're Martin Truex Jr., you're going to have to win a race. You can't point your way in. No one's safe.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess you could have 3 winners and not Martin Truex. Jimmy Johnson could get it done. Kevin Harvick could win the Invitational. And for those of you that don't get that joke, we've been calling the Phoenix race the Kevin Harvick Invitational for the last couple of years because he won so many consecutively, and he has a way of figuring that track out. Now with the reconfigure on there, I wonder, down the road if that's going to be a little bit different, moving the start-finish. Is he going to change his driving style on that? But he's always a threat to win that. So it really would be one of those where you've got 3 winners and then you've got Martin Truex on points. So that would be quite a battle. And then take it to Miami, and you don't even have to win there to win the championship.
Exactly.
So.
Well, interesting you bring it up with Phoenix because he did sweep the 2006 spring and fall race. They reconfigured the track in 2011 between the spring race and the fall race with the repave. Took him 3 years to win there again.
Yeah.
So, but then he's won 5 out of the last 8 races.
Right.
So, Kevin Harvick's the man to beat. I think he looks really good at Phoenix. We'll be there in a couple of weeks, but
yeah.
I just think it's so hard to choose the top 4. I mean, this is when it's so close that anything can happen, and it's so hard to choose. I mean, we saw with Chase Elliott all the way down to the bottom. These drivers are so amazingly talented, and they're so consistent that, I mean, unless an accident happens, I mean, it's so close that it's anyone's game. I mean, Martin Truex, he's pulling away a tad, but as far as everyone else, top 4.
Like Kyle Larson, who would have thought he would have been eliminated last week?
Exactly.
Who would have thought my championship pick would have not even made the playoffs? And Joey Logano. So, you never know with this system, with the incumbent to win. But yeah, also some Formula One news.
Yeah, so Formula One last week, Hamilton ended up finishing 9th. He had to finish 5th in order to secure the championship. But at the Mexican Grand Prix, Hamilton finished 9th. You had to have Sebastian Vettel had to either finish 1st or 2nd. They both get together in turn 1. And once again, that's, I told you, a race is not won in turn 1, but championships can be lost. So Mercedes has now clinched 4th year in a row, the Constructors' Championship. Hamilton has now won 4 championships, world championships, and become the best driver out of England. So he'll probably get a Sir now. The Queen will be Sir Hamilton, which would be kind of hard to deal with him after that. But when you think about where he joins, he's joining Vettel, who also has 4 championships. Michael Schumacher with 7. Juan Manuel Fangio and Alain Prost. And so that's some rare air. That's some rare company for him to be able to do that. And of course, Vettel and Hamilton combined have won 7 of the last 8 titles, and it was only ruined by Rosberg last year, and Rosberg was nice enough to send Hamilton a congratulations, and that still blows my mind because let's talk about Texas last year. Who won Texas last year? It was Carl Edwards, right? Carl Edwards is not in the sport anymore. Rosberg retires, not in the sport anymore. I mean, that just blows my mind. How do you leave, on the top?
At the top of your game,
yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
Carl Edwards, Rosberg winning the championship. I think Edwards had won the title, he would have stepped out too. So,
yeah.
Crazy. And NHRA news as well.
Yeah, NHRA, of course, last week we had Terry McMullen won, Matt Hagan, Greg Anderson, and Eddie Krayek. Championship's still up for grabs with 1 race to go next weekend at Auto Club. Eddie Krayek's already, got the points with Pro Stock Motorcycle, but right now Top Fuel is still up in the air. Probably the closest race is defending champ Ron Capps and Funny Car is 15 points behind Robert Haidt. So NHRA got a lot of great stuff going on. Final race next weekend.
It's a shame all these racing seasons are coming to an end, but that'll give us the opportunity to preview what's coming up next year.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for this edition of the New Mexico Motorsports Report. You can always catch us online at nmmotorsportsreport.com, on Facebook at the New Mexico Motorsports Report, and on Twitter at NMM Report. For Brooklyn Green and David Swope, I'm Dominic Aragon. We'll see you next week.